Hey everyone, this is Sisters Overcoming Stress, also known as S.O.S. I am your co host, Tia Robinson, mindfulness and stress management coach, and I'm also here with the lovely
Dr.D, it's me, Denora Nieves, and thank you all for joining us for our April episode of S.O.S. So, Tia, April is Stress Awareness Month.
Yes, ma'am.
Talk to me. Because I just feel like you and I have both been so stressed this month. And, given that our podcast is dedicated to sisters overcoming stress, I think this is a conversation we need to be honest about, and we need to have, and we need to talk and share. So, I know I sent you over this article. 73% of people report physical symptoms of stress, headaches, emotional symptoms of stress. So we're talking irritability. I mean, it's a big number of us, right? What are we dealing with, and why can't we deal with it?
Well, in my journey when it comes to stress and stress management, I've learned that a lot of the times we are either concerned with the future or we're stuck in the past. And those types of things cause symptoms such as anxiety, depression, worry, angst. And it's almost become normalized in our society to operate from a half full or empty cup, right? So we've kind of learned how or unlearned how to manage our stress and stress response, because when you think about primitive humans, right, that stress response was something that kicked into gear when, we were being chased by, I don't know, saber-toothed tiger or something.
Yeah.
Or when there was danger, like it was a very intuitive.
That's it. It's your amygdala. Just live, just survive.
Exactly. It was just about survival of the fittest. And so that kicked in order for us to be able to survive, to, continue in terms of extending our bloodlines, things of that sort. But we've kind of abused that in modern society because we're stressed out, not from the things like when it comes to food or shelter, because in most cases we have that provided for us. We don't have to go out and hunt animals. We don't have to go and, relocate our lives in the sense of,
the weather's coming.
Snowing, exactly, right?
Nature's about to betray us. Yeah.
Exactly. Let me get that apartment right there, or whatever have you. And I mean, I say that lightly because we do have issues with homelessness and things of that sort.
Yeah.
But now we worry about things that, in comparison to those basic needs, we may need to look at and unpack and really look at in the larger scheme of things. So when I say that, we are focused on the future or the past, a lot of times we have to address issues when it comes to stress. And I know that's been my personal journey. I know when I've worked with other people and clients and I've coached, those tend to be those things that once you get down to the nitty gritty, that's really what it is. So
yeah, and it's such a catch-22 because, you want to be the kind of person that's reflective and learns from your past, but you don't want to get stuck in it. And you want to be the kind of person that's responsible and prepared for your future, but you don't want to be stuck out there either. So how do you balance that? How do you manage being prepared for the future and being reflective of the past and still being in the moment?
Mm-hmm. I mean, prioritization is really something that's important. I'll share my own journey when it comes to stress and stress management, and actually how I got into this work. I was dealing with a lot of stress at work, and I was working on a corporate level for a Fortune 500, maybe even a Fortune 100 company. And I, as you know, having known me since the third or fourth grade, have been always super ambitious, right? So I'm going
not us.
Yeah, not
do at all.
So I go into the corporate world and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to have that corner office in the next 5 years, right? Like, it's going to say VP of Marketing, Tia Robinson, I'm going to be calling shots, blah, 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 right? Boss moves. I got kind of a reality check in terms of my ambitions because, you know, I'm thinking I'm fearless. We had a rework and I started reporting to someone that I perceived as being difficult, right? And so having to go in and deal with that person and their personality on a day-to-day basis started to, you know, bring up fears and, you know, manifest things like worry. And I know people who are listening may be laughing, like, why is she talking about, why don't you just say, you worked for a horrible person and she stressed you out? Well, because perception is key, right? So, and when I say prioritization, I'll get to that in a second, but I started to have worry, I started to have anxiety, and then had a full-on panic attack at work one day. And I went to the doctor, and my doctor said the most simplest thing that I couldn't digest at that time, but now as an adult that's gone through some experiences, I get it. He told me that I had two options, either take medication or quit my job. And I was like, what? Like, there's got
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I got bills. I just bought this red convertible. Like, I mean, I was out here living life. And so I'm like, well, wait a second. My car note, I got to pay my car note, you know, and I got to pay for this loft apartment and just all types of stuff or whatever. So I wouldn't allow myself to have those two options. And I found meditation. I found that working out, those things help with anxiety. And through doing those things, I was able to break down really what was stressing me out, address my issues, and prioritize where stress fit in my life. And I realized the stress wasn't fitting in my life. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not going to deal with a certain level of disrespect. I'm not going to deal with a certain level of bullying. And so I realized that stress really didn't have a place in my life as it existed previously. Now, if a saber-toothed tiger is chasing me, then that's something. Well, I welcome that level of stress and kicking into that motion. But I always go back to my doctor saying, hey, you really have two choices. And even though I came to the fact that I had to go and kind of circumvent what it is that he was saying, at the end of the day, I really had one choice and two other choices. I would say it's either to stay in that position or to not stay in that position. And I chose not to stay in that position because I realized that stress didn't have a place in my life. So
yes.
Yeah. So I say all that to say.
Yes, to kicking out stress.
Exactly. I was really worried about my place and my position in terms of what were people saying about me. You know, am I slipping? Is my slip showing? You know, am I forgetting things? Am I dotting my I's and crossing my T's? Well, I did that yesterday, and what if this comes up or she finds out about that? So it was really me having this conversation in my head about things that haven't happened yet or things that did happen and that I had no power in changing. And so you really have to just kind of look at your life in terms of what it is that you are willing to invite into it, what works for you and what doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you got to get rid of it.
So let's talk about that, because I think it's important for us, particularly for our listeners, to define what is stress, right? So stress is the perception by someone that their expectations require more resources from them than what they can mobilize, right? That's what we're looking at. That's the definition of stress. And that's what stresses people out, that I don't got this, right? That what this is asking of me, what this is requiring is way more than what I can provide. So when we talk about stress, is it an issue of managing expectations, you think? Or do you think it's an issue of shifting your perception? What is your thought?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's all of the above because I know me personally, and I always go back to me because, different strokes for different folks. But I always say I'm a subject matter expert because I've been through it.
Girl, going through it.
Exactly. I've been
always on it. Never letting go of the experience. Yes,
I'm letting go. I can't. I'm like, oh gosh. I can't deal with it. But I think it's all of the above. I think, a lot of the times we have to unpack things when it comes to our thinking and our expectations, right? And then also we have to get back to having a clear understanding of who you are as a person and who you are as an individual and what it is that you can tolerate and what it is that you can't tolerate. Some people thrive off of those, experiences. They feel like the adrenaline rush of, that those stress hormones kicking into your body is something that helps them work better or whatever. And if that works for you, by all means. But I think it's an issue when we live in a society and culture where stress is the driving force for our success, right? And in order to define success, you have to invite, copious amounts of stress into your life. And I don't believe that that's necessarily true. I think that you have to really look at yourself as an individual and figure out what works best for you, right?
Yeah.
So.
And stress is a natural part of our world, and it's not really about how it impacts you as much as it is about what you allow and how you cope with it, right? So,
exactly.
Coping skills are really important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're always going to face, pressures that will lead to stress and things that lead to stress. And I don't believe that all stress is bad. It's just a matter of how much it is that you are willing to deal with. And how you deal with it, right?
Nor is all stress predictable and controllable, right? You can do your best, as I have tried, to keep a stress-free life, right? And then life happens and things that you couldn't have predicted or controlled just come to pass,
Yeah.
So I think I spoke last time we were on the podcast about my dad being really sick, and he's much better now. Thank you, everybody, for your prayers. But that was a real stressful moment that I could not have predicted nor controlled. Yeah. Right? It was just issue of this is life. This just happens. And I had to sit and think about, okay, I couldn't have done anything different here because it wasn't my experience. But my experience of being stressed out is what I can control.
Yeah.
So, you can call it. Acupuncture. Yeah, exactly. Let me book this acupuncture appointment. Let me do this prayer. Let me sit in meditation. Let me journal all night till my wrist gets numb.
Yeah.
Let me sit in this. Let me think about it. Let me cry. Let me talk. Let me not talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you
have to work your coping skills.
Yes, coping skills. But a lot of us don't have that. Like, self-care is this new buzzword or whatever because it's not an obvious thing that we naturally do, right? Like, self-care, no, we come from a culture where, especially when you're a person of color and you're a woman of color, it's like you take care of everybody else and everybody else's needs except for your own. So it's like, I heard an older woman saying something the other day where she was like, self-care? Like, what is that? There was no such thing as self-care back in my day. And I was just like, that's unfortunate.
Sorry to hear that.
But these are the people that are raising the next generation. So, being able to identify what's stressing you out is key, right? Like, that's step number one, right? Addressing whatever it is that is at hand and on the table. And then two, like, how do you deal with what is presenting itself, right? Sometimes you have to be very flexible and fluid like you, right? Because you can't control sickness. You can't control illness. You can't control death in instances. You can't, there's so many things that you can't control.
Absolutely.
What you can control is the second option, and those are the coping mechanisms and being able to figure out ways to be able to deal with whatever the stress is at hand. And so...
And being kind to yourself.
Yes, and I was going to get on that
You
as
know what I
the
mean?
last
Being
option.
kind to yourself, because I think that the other thing that we do often, particularly those of us who are doing the work, right, in quotes,
Mhm.
is we force ourselves into enlightenment, which we talked about on the last podcast, right? It's like, okay, you can't, you know better, so do
Mhm.
better. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, sometimes you just have to take the whole Sunday to watch reality ratchet TV and be good.
Yes,
You know what I
right.
mean? Sometimes you just have to be kind to yourself and allow yourself whatever thing in the moment is going to help you feel better, not as a permanent solution, right? But even just as a temporary way to shift your mood a little bit, because let me tell you, I'm fighting this cold right now. You hear I got this scratchy voice going. I feel
Mhm.
like an 80s throwback. Where my homies?
Not ill and out stretch.
Right? I feel like I got that Phoebe Friends voice when she was sexy again. But that's a real consequence of pushing yourself too hard. That eventually your body's like, okay, boo, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
going nowhere else. I'm doing nothing else. And if you can't make this choice for yourself, I'm gonna make it for you.
Yeah.
And so
And
you really have to listen to your body when it tells you those things and really be able to adjust and respond and be like, okay, wait a minute. I am clearly pushing myself to a limit that is not healthy. And thank you, body, for shutting down and reminding me that this ain't a good pace to operate at. You
yes.
know what I mean? You
Yes, and
have
I
to
tell people all the time that things happen to us energetically first before they even happen to our bodies, right? So I
Yes.
was experiencing stress and burnout at an
Yes.
energetic level before I had the panic attack at work. So, you know,
Yes.
again, coping mechanisms, knowing who you are, getting grounded, even if you're not experiencing stress right now, I always recommend that people sit down and they start meditating, because you start to become aware of your energetic body as well as your physical body. So when you get to that point where you're mentally drained and burned out, like,
Mhm.
you've already touched on the first two levels and you don't
Mhm.
have to get there,
Right.
which is really,
Right.
really important.
Right. Or like, I tell people all the time, the beautiful thing about my immune system, because I'm so aligned with it, is it
Mm-hmm.
will knock me upside my head, but it won't knock me out. You
Yep.
understand what I'm saying? And that's a
You can
really
feel it.
important, yeah, that's a really important thing. Like my voice will start to get scratchy, but I don't stop functioning. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you want to be able to catch it before you get to a point where you can't function. Because 9 times out of 10, you're way into the illness by then. And now you're having to do twice as much recovery, which is only more energy that's being
Yes.
required of you. So really, you want to stay in tune with your body. You want to stay in tune with your mind so that as stressful situations are coming up, if you can't change them, you can at least cope with them in a healthy way. And if you can't cope with them in a healthy enough way to keep you from getting ill, you can catch yourself as you're getting ill. So okay, wait, I need a break, or
Yeah.
I need a boundary, or I need a moment, or I need a friend, or I need a, Mucinex, whatever it is
I need
that
some
you
coins.
need. You know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you need to get you back right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's important. That's really important. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us on the April episode of S.O.S. Sisters Overcoming Stress. It is National Stress Awareness Month, so we want you to make sure that we take good care of ourselves.
Yes.
Great care of ourselves as we move through this month, through the year, through our lives, because stress really is a killer. It really is a killer. It really leads to so many other issues, and it's so easy to catch and so easy to work if you know how to work. So we will see you soon for another episode of SOS, Sisters Overcoming Stress.
Bye, everyone.